Zealanders conceded a goal midway through the first half and couldn't find a way through the strong Dutch defence on Sky Sport.
As the full-time whistle goes, it was hard fought in the second half. New Zealand gave it their all, but they couldn't break down that strong back four from the Dutch, which was solid throughout.
Coach Tony Reddings is remaining upbeat in defeat.
First half was pretty tight and I thought it was quite even. The second half we were far the better team, and sometimes you don't get your rewards, but if we keep playing like that through the tournament, we'll be fine.
The football firm's next outing is on Friday afternoon against hosts Canada, who opened the World Cup with a 1-0 win over China. Former English cricketer Dimitri Mascarenhas has been appointed the Black Caps bowling coach on a full-time basis. The 37-year-old took over from Shane Bond on a part-time basis in April, but he's earned a 2-year contract after impressing during the recently completed Test series in England. Mascarenhas is a former coach of the Otago Volts and played 20 one-day internationals as well as 14 2020 internationals for England. It's 7:05.
Radio Live weather with Mammoth Modern Insulation. Be warm and lower your energy bills. 0800 Mammoth.
In the west, from Northland to Taranaki, including the Coromandel Peninsula, expect scattered showers, fine tomorrow, apart from areas of morning fog. Whanganui to Wellington, cloudy tomorrow, drizzle from Manawatu south. For remaining North Island areas, mainly fine but cloudy about the central high country and the Bay of Plenty. Nelson, Marlborough and Canterbury, fine but high cloud later tomorrow. Bulla and Westland, showers gradually clearing Bulla this evening, rain everywhere tomorrow. Fiordland, drizzle developing, rain tomorrow, some heavy falls. Otago and Southland, high cloud with scattered evening rain in the west and south tomorrow. And for the Chathams, showers clearing this evening, mainly fine tomorrow. It's 7:05. I'm Karen McCarthy and you're on Radio Live.
It's Sunday Social, an hour dedicated to social media with Vaughan Davis.
And welcome to Sunday Social, the show that has had more episodes than Grace Jones has had birthdays. I was lucky enough, and boy, I do mean lucky, to go and see her in Sydney this week, age 67, tearing up the stage. Absolutely jolly-nificent. Hey, welcome to the show that's all about Sunday Social in a way that you and me can understand, not those pointy-headed geeks in Silicon Valley. As always, please be part of the show. I'd love that. Text 3920, keyword live, tweet at Vaughan Davis. If you are following me on Twitter, you will see we are there on Periscope. Ooh, it's a video app. And youtube.com/Vaughan Davis TV. And you can see both me and my studio guest. Later on in the show, the irrepressible Mr. Paul Brisden with yet another fitness app. He and I download so many fitness apps. You should see the bodies we should have. But this time, it's one with a difference. And absolutely stay tuned for that because it's really cool. And I love it. But first. If you've been on Twitter or social media at all in the last few months, you would have seen this oft-shared wisdom that the world's biggest media company makes no media. That would be Facebook. The world's biggest accommodation company owns no beds or hotels. That would be Airbnb. The world's biggest retailer has no stock. Alibaba. And if you're listening to the music in the background, and if you're older than 20, you'll know where this is going. The world's biggest taxi company doesn't own any cars. It's called Uber. It's been here in Wellington and Auckland since middle of last year. I use it once or twice a week. It just turned 5, and its GM for New Zealand, Oscar Pepper, is with me in the studio. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Vaughan.
I'm sorry, that intro was so long, we're out of time. We're going to go to the ads. No, let's do some interview. Despite the fact that, cool dudes like you and me know all about Uber, not everyone listening will have ridden on it or even heard of it. What is, in a nutshell, what's Uber?
So Uber is a technology company that uses a lot of fancy data and technology to basically allow you to say, I want to be somewhere in 5 minutes, and press a button, and that thing just gets sorted for you. We do a number of different things around the world. We fool around with all sorts of different products and cars. In New Zealand, you download the Uber app, you enter in your credit card, you push a button, you get a ride, and you get to where you go. You jump in, you rate the driver at the end of the trip, you hop back out. It's all cashless, it's all seamless. The whole thing is just very, very easy to use.
So that was sort of a big list of features and aspects of Uber. In a nutshell, though, it's like a taxi but run by an app. Is that, to a user, is that sort of how you would boil it down?
Yeah, it's an alternative. It's part of the transport mix. It's a way of getting from A to B, and we work hard to try and make that as easy as possible.
So the three things there seem to be three things for me that work for Uber. And as far as I can tell, Uber seems to be the only one that has those three things. And the first thing is the app. So you can order on an app. Now, lots of taxi companies these days have got apps, so that's not unique anymore. The second thing is it's generally cheaper than taxis, but sometimes that varies, and we'll talk about that in the end. And the third thing is the seamless payment. So you get where you're going, and you just get out, which is kind of cool. Is that mix of those three things, to your knowledge, is that unique to Uber, or are competitors trying to play in that space as well in this country?
So I think those three things, they're great to have, and they sound very simple, but it's very hard to make things simple. So to get that right mix of cheap, of reliable, importantly, and of affordable, and of seamless, is why we've got thousands of engineers and thousands of ops people around the world. We work every day on tweaking, every second to make sure that your pickup runs a little smoother, tweaking quality ratings of drivers and riders to make sure that your experience is just that little bit better. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to make that service as seamless as possible. Now, yeah, I think there are a lot of people in this space. Something that we've noticed definitely is when we enter a market, not only do a lot of companies get apps, but a lot of app companies move into the space, and we think that's great. Uber's a very, very competitive company, and we love competing. But everywhere we go, competition increases, and that's a very good thing.
So I'm famously in New Zealand, and I don't know what your global view of this the Uber market, the Uber business is, but famously in New Zealand, eBay never made it here, and eBay never made it here because a local thought, oh, I'll do eBay here and I'll call it Trade Me. Has this happened in any markets around the world? Has someone beaten you to Uber?
So a personal reflection is I think that we managed to learn from eBay's mistake.
Right.
Which is underestimating the Kiwi market.
Spread fast.
Well, it's New Zealand is a very, very interesting progressive market. It's a deregulated taxi system. There's a lot of good reasons to be in New Zealand, and I think eBay probably just didn't see the opportunity like we did. So we're very happy to be here.
So obviously going into more, going into a city, because that's how you approach this, right? City by city. There's more back end than just a phone app and some server in San Francisco, because otherwise you'd be in Dunedin, you'd be in Invercargill, you'd be in Queenstown. So what would it take for you to move into New Plymouth?
Yeah, so we're very different from say a Facebook or a Google,
yeah.
Which is an extremely light marketing model, basically. Uber moves real people in the real world, and so we work heavily on logistics. So In every city where we launch, we basically start up a new company, and that company initially has 3 people: a general manager, a marketing manager, and a driver operations manager.
Yep.
And so those 2 people basically own either side, supply and demand. And then as the city grows, obviously we put more people in, and so it's quite resource intensive because we've got a very, very important community to take care of.
We've got 2 communities, right?
We do. That's right. Drivers have choice because there's nothing locking in a driver like a traditional, I suppose, company. And so if a driver's not getting the best possible deal and they're not very, very happy to drive, they won't drive with Uber. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how we can make drivers happy, whether that's making a safer work environment, earning them more money, just with figuring out perks for them, that sort of thing. And then obviously a happy driver basically equals a happy rider because, all of the experiences that I'm sure you've had in Uber, it's just a great relationship when you know it's safe and you know that the driver enjoys driving. And so looking after both of those groups, and generally those groups pull in opposite directions. So working on getting those 2 to come to the table and make that whole experience seamless is something that requires a lot of people thinking about it. So every city has a local team usually, and that's probably why we're not in more cities at the moment.
So my Auckland Uber experience might be different to my Sydney one or my San Francisco one or my Berlin one. In fact, you're not in Berlin, are you? Is that right? I'm trying to think. It's not a pop quiz. We'll just shelve that question.
We're in about 300 and I think 311 markets at last count. So I've lost count, unfortunately. But look, you're absolutely right. We're hyper local. We represent different products, different people in every market that we're in. And Uber, because we hire locally in every market, the product changes to suit the market. So we have different types of cars in Europe from where we have in New Zealand, from what we have in Australia, from what we have in Japan.
And the reaction in different markets has been markedly different too. I mean, here in New Zealand, I guess the taxi companies are addressing the competition and they're upping the game in terms of apps, and maybe they're trying to compete. I was in Australia over the last couple of weeks, and the Taxi Business Association, whatever they call it, the Taxi Mafia. I don't know what they are, but they were running some really aggressive ads over there. They were basically saying, every time you take an Uber, you're trampling a baby kitten.
Something like that.
Like that.
Yeah.
They did everything but have the photograph of the dead kitten on the billboard.
So it's a new product. It's a new product, and it's changing a lot of lives for the better. And with that sort of thing that just sweeps through a market very quickly and changes how people get around, there's a lot of misconceptions around that sort of stuff. So I think it's important to point out that Uber now, we're a 5-year-old company, but we're doing over 1 million trips a day. And so safety is our top priority. If we were happy with
no, it's not. So, I mean, it can't be. Making money's got to be your top priority. And airlines say this too. Safety is never your top priority. So I have to call bullshit on that. It just can't be. Otherwise, you wouldn't even give people rides, right? You just stay at home and knit. That's safer. So safety is a high priority.
We only make money if people are safe.
I know, but you there, but you can't give me that safety as our top priority line.
I think the point is you got to have
friends here.
I think the point is you got to have one before the other.
Yeah.
And so one of the key business focuses that we've got, doing 1 million trips a day, if we were happy with a 1 in a million event occurring, we'd be in trouble every day.
Yeah.
And so we focus a lot on that sort of stuff as well.
Yep. One of the things you're changing apart from industries is, you're changing what is quite a powerful and an enormous industry worldwide. And I read a fascinating story, and if I'd been a better radio interview preparer, I would have got the numbers. But taxi medallions in New York City, and you know this story, I can tell. Listening to the music from the TV series Taxi, which was set in New York City, and the taxis in New York are licensed, and they're licensed in kind of an archaic way with a metal medallion bolted to the bonnet of the typically Lincoln Continental or whatever it is. And they were almost worth $1 million before you came along, and they've been going down and down and down and down ever since you arrived. Is there serious pressure being brought to bear in cities like that where fortunes are being lost? It's not just some guy with 10 cabs. It's some multi-millionaires losing their living, losing their fortunes.
Well, I think the other key to that economic point is. There's 14,000 taxi licenses in New York, I believe, close to 100 years ago.
Yep.
Today, there's 14,000 taxi licenses in New York.
Yep.
It hasn't changed, but New York's population has shot through the roof. So That's part of the reason why the money goes up. It's because regulatory capture has meant that these medallions just keep getting worth more and more every year.
And they were pushing $1 million, weren't they? It was absolutely astounding.
And when something's worth $1 million, you damn well better make sure that thing is working for you, right? And so people expect a lot of money to come back from owning one of those licenses, and that puts a lot of pressure on a driver to work as much as possible. It pushes a lot of their income and their earnings down as low as possible. And so you've got a lot of very, very unhappy drivers who aren't making half of what they take in, at the end of their shift. And a lot of those drivers drive for Uber.
So all going to pay off the loan to buy those expensive medallions. Listening to Radio Live Sunday Social, I'm Vaughan Davis. With me from Uber, Oscar Peppert. Back soon.
Be entertained. Be fully informed. Drive home with Duncan Garner.
She wanted the right to die. She wanted the right to assisted suicide. She went to court hoping to get a judgment in her favour, and the judge says no.
We are dismayed by Justice Collins' judgment. In some ways, I am relieved that Lucretia was unconscious and unresponsive when we received it.
There has to be a debate around this at Parliament. The court has said we can't do anything about it. It is for Parliament to sort it out. I think they need to put on the big boy pants and start having a discussion.
Drive home with Duncan Garner. Weekdays, 3 till 6 on Radio Live.
I like it.
It's Sunday Social, an hour dedicated to social media with Vaughan Davis.
And welcome back to Sunday Social. If the chitter-chatterers in the back row will please pipe down. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Hazel. I have with me tonight from Uber, Mr. Oscar Peppert. Welcome back.
Thanks very much.
Now, one of the criticisms levelled at ride-sharing or private hire outfits like Uber is that your drivers aren't licensed and they don't have a little photograph saying Vaughan 27 on the dashboard and so on. But what you do have instead is this rating system. So I've used Uber, and it won't let you leave the app after a ride unless you give the driver a rating from 1 to 5. And in fact, it's very American, because if you give them a 3, which is average, right, you get a bloody email from Uber saying, "What happened?" Tell us about the rating system.
So I think, quick correction. Sorry,
well, I did.
In New Zealand, the drivers that we work with in Auckland and Wellington do have a little license on the front saying Vaughan, 237, local equivalent. So in New Zealand, we work with licensed private hire drivers. Those drivers have the same licenses as a taxi driver. They pass the same background checks. They pass the same safety tests. So all the drivers that we work with are fully licensed. I think, again, it's a case of a new product coming to market. There are a lot of misconceptions floating around. So to clear that up, the drivers that we work with in Auckland and Wellington are licensed. On top of that, on top of the system that the government puts in place for safety, we've got our own rating system. And I think you're right. This is one of the key pieces of what the sharing economy is starting to look like, which is you sharing something with me and providing a rating for that service. So when you jump into a car on the Uber platform, you will rate the driver for your trip out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
And the driver also, I don't know if you know this, but the driver also rates you out of 5 stars.
Oh, I know this, all right. So we'll get to that in a minute. So we rate the driver out of 5 stars. And I mean, was this just sort of startup time when, I gave a couple of 3 ratings because I thought 3 was average, which is an okay word. It's not average in the All Black sense. Oh, it was a bit average, but average. It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was average. Is 3 stars bad news for a driver?
So it all comes out in the wash. We don't really spend a lot of time looking at individual ratings. We spend a lot of time looking at trends, because trends usually imply something that we can, maybe get on top of or help fix up. For example, probably our most common problem with new drivers working on the platform is directions. Is they don't necessarily know where they're going. They take an inefficient route. And so if we see a bunch of those on an account, we'll be able to say, hey, Vaughan, you're not quite taking the most efficient route. Maybe you can use the GPS and the app to help fix you up.
Maybe.
And we can help.
That's my biggest bugbear. It's 2015, and whether it's a cab or an Uber or whatever, why would anyone not use the bloody GPS?
Yeah, well, I mean, we fixed it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But then the driver also rates you. So
so let's talk about that. So if I'm nicely dressed and polite to the driver and don't soil the cab, I can't tip him, so he's not going to rate me on that. So he'll give me a rating. But why does that matter?
It matters because a driver wants something in the transaction and a rider wants something in the transaction. It's not always the same thing. You want to get to where you're going as fast as possible. The driver, has a different set of incentives. And what the rating system does is basically tell us a lot more about the trip than you can previously see before Uber came along.
Yep.
The customer in the sharing economy isn't necessarily the last voice that you hear on something like this.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of cases, I mean, for us, we've got 2 customers. If a driver is not happy because they don't think they're being looked after or their complaints about customers aren't being heard, they won't necessarily drive. And so it's really important for us to be able to spot those sorts of breakdowns, I suppose, in the level of trust, and to be able to fix it up.
What are the consequences for me as a 1-star passenger? If I'm a consistent 1-star prick of a passenger, what are the consequences for me?
Well, it depends the reasons for your 1-star rating. For example,
I'm rude and I fart all the time.
Right. Well, if you're consistently
and I don't even let them wind the windows down.
Oh, you're a monster.
I am
an absolute monster. So we'd probably have a talk with you. That'd be the first step.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Hello, Vaughan. We've had some issues with your taxi passengers' skills.
Yeah, often it's just a quick reality check. I think a lot of people, part of it is traditionally there's no trust between a driver and a rider,
Mm-hmm.
and what Uber does is build trust into that transaction. So when you trust the driver to behave and the driver trusts you to behave, everybody gets along a lot better and everybody loves the service.
Okay, well I'm certainly going to pull my socks up and allow him to wind the window down
Please
in certain circumstances. But so you reach out, as Americans might say, to passengers and say, hey, you're not always meeting our expectations. And what else happens? Is it true? Is it true that Paul over there, who I understand has a 2-star rating, and I with my 5-star rating both order an Uber at the same time, the 5-star guy gets the ride? Is that true?
No, that's not necessarily true.
Oh.
A driver only sees one trip at the one time.
The driver only sees it, but what's presented to him is determined by the back end, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. But no, that's a bit more of a misconception.
It's an urban myth.
The issue is more, and without going to the specifics of Paul's account, the issue is more around things like cleaning fees. That's actually a big stress point for a driver. Is making a mess in the back of their car. And in a lot of cases, it's not actually the rating system that fixes that up. It's just having a credit card on file stops a lot of that behavior and also fixes it up easily.
You're no longer just some Joe Schmo who stumbled out of some bar in Britomart and got in a cab. You are a known person.
Yeah, that's right.
To the company.
But Paul's cleaned up his act since. Which is great.
Yeah, no, he's just got a different credit card.
Yeah.
The other relationship, which is very important in whichever country you operate in, and New Zealand's no exception, is the relationship with government. And it seems to have been going swimmingly here.
I would say so. I think there's a lot of press about Uber and a traditional relationship with regulators and government, and a lot of that comes from the fact that Uber's been fighting for survival against a very, very large incumbent industry for a majority of its life, and you don't get there without a few battle scars. But I think Uber's also very, very willing and wants to be regulated. That's exactly where we need to get to. And also in this business, there are real safety concerns and there are real consumer transaction concerns. And so you want to be regulated for both of those things, and you want the government to do a good job of those things. However, over time, a lot of regulations get built up like barnacles that don't actually cater for safety or consumer protection.
And no one really knows why all of those laws are necessarily in place.
Well, maybe they were good ideas at the time. Yeah, and that's often the case. The law isn't static. It's not absolute. It needs to be updated all the time. New Zealand is fantastic in the sense that it's a lightly regulated market. It's a lot better than a lot of the markets I've seen around the world. The government, in our experience, has been very pragmatic and open to a good idea.
It's like Uber and Time Warner are like Twitter friends or something, and had a bit of a powwow before you came over here about our nimble legislature. I won't ask you to answer that. Hey, before you worked for Uber, you were involved with something called Greenway Up.
Yes.
So you're a bit of a greenie at heart. Is there a green angle to Uber that sort of speaks to you?
It's the reason why I'm at Uber. It's a very, very big part of what I do and what brings me into work every day. There's different ways to make our mark and make sure that our children have a better world to live in, and some of that is figuring out problems like climate change and global warming, but some of it's also about using the assets that we have a little better. And cars are one of the most underutilized assets on the road today. 95% of the time, your car sits idle. Now, having said that, almost every single Kiwi owns a car. So there's almost as many cars as there are Kiwis, and they're almost never being used. Now, surely you can put some information over the top of that allows that to be used better. And when they're used better, and this is a lot of the stuff that we focus on a lot, and we like to geek out at as people who focus on data.
Yeah.
When you can actually start to fill cars up, well, then people need cars less. And so some people start to sell their cars. And that's when you start to take cars off the road.
And is that happening? Are you seeing, well, who do they sell them to, though? People on other planets? I mean, the cars are still there, right?
Yeah, that's right. But obviously this isn't...
That sounded like a good idea at the time, but I thought it through, and then the cars are still there.
But cars go naturally, right? Cars end. And this isn't necessarily about taking cars off the road right now. This is about a long-term play for making sure
changing the habit.
That's right.
Another interesting thing I read, it appealed to me quite a bit, was the idea of sharing rides. More than one Uber user in the same car, actually, seamlessly splitting the bill. Is that something that's coming to New Zealand anytime soon?
We very much hope so. So there's a government review.
You're the general manager, it says here. It's not a hope so. You're in charge.
There's a government review underway at the moment because the law doesn't quite. There's 3 lines in the law about ride sharing. There's
Yep.
3 lines in the law about ride sharing, and I think we wish it was more. I think the regulators wish it was more, and I think the government wishes it more. And so there's a review underway at the moment to talk about what that law is going to look like and what that product's going to look like. Now, in over 100 different markets around the world, we're running a ride sharing product, and it is fantastic. If you ever get a chance to ride UberX overseas, it's an amazing product. And the reason is because there aren't these high barriers to entry. There aren't huge licensing fees. There aren't, it doesn't take you 10 weeks to get a license, for example. That's when you don't necessarily get a driver who needs a full-time
Right.
amount of cash.
And that's when it becomes the thing that the taxi companies, particularly in Australia, are trying to make us scared of, right?
Well, but it's not necessarily about replacing anything. It's about growing the pie. I'll give you an example of this, right? On a Monday night, there is 1/10 the amount of people that need a ride as peak time on a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the same amount of taxis on the road more or less all the time. So the taxis can't necessarily fill all that supply. And what happens? It means sometimes every second car you pass is a taxi, and sometimes there are just no taxis when you need a ride. And so what ride sharing is a very, very natural complement to that, that allows people who, maybe already work a job, but want to earn a little bit of extra cash for their family, able to come on the road, fulfill that demand at short notice, pop off the road, and then obviously allow more people to get around.
And give Paul a 2-star rating for soiling the cab. Oscar Pepper, thank you so much for joining me tonight on Sunday Social, all the way from Uber.
Thanks very much.
After the break, Mr. Paul Brislin, as promised, with the week's social media, internet, and app news, including a fitness app that will get you off the couch and turn you into a carrot. Back soon.
Daytime talk with Willie Jackson and Alison Moore.
So match fixing is one of the biggest issues surrounding sport, and John is a former professional rugby player. He's written this fascinating story of Mark Stevens, a former All Black playing professional rugby in Paris, and he's drawn into this world of match fixing, and there's this beautiful woman. Well, it's a bit predictable, isn't it there, John?
A beautiful woman journalist.
Beautiful female journalist.
That happens.
Great plot point there.
Join Willie Jackson and Alison Moore weekdays midday till 3 on Radio Live.
It's Sunday Social. Everything you need to know about social media with Vaughan Davis.
There's too many dicks on the dance floor.
Too many dicks on the dance floor. Too many dicks on the dance floor.
Too many dicks.
Too many dicks on the dance floor.
Too many dicks. Too many dicks on the dance floor. Too many dicks.
And welcome back to Sunday Social. Regular listeners will know that is my mea culpa music I play every time there are no ladies on the show. And I will use that as a bridge to introduce the third man, not counting me or the first one, or counting me in the first one, Mr. Paul Brislin. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. How are you?
Welcome to the dance floor.
Well, that's right. That's right. No girls here today.
No ladies, which is not a good thing, which is why I play that music and reminds me that we need to work harder to balance things out. How's your digital week been, Mr. Brislin?
Oh, it's been fantastic. I've been spending money on devices.
Devices? I hadn't planned to talk about this, but what is that? What is that you've got there?
It's the shiny new MacBook Air.
You went for the MacBook Air?
I did go for the MacBook Air. I asked Twitter, and Twitter said, don't go for the new MacBook, which is practically two-dimensional. Even though it's glorious, A, it's a lot more money, and two, it's first generation technology. So never go for the first gen.
There's a hidden flaw. There's a hidden danger. I would even call it with the MacBook Air. Is this in the summer? Summer, if you find yourself sitting shirtless on the couch, the damn thing is so sharp,
so shiny.
It'll slice your belly.
I've got to, and I do wonder about.
It'll slice your belly.
Quite a bit of belly to. I'll just cover that up.
Just saying, it'll slice your belly clean open. Hey, we have spent as most listeners will know, you and I have spent the entire week trawling the internet for interesting, fascinating, and useful stuff. And this one, is it interesting? Is it fascinating? Is it useful? 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. The tweeting pothole of Panama.
Oh, I think it's brilliant. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for potholes to get out there and tell us where they are
and become part of the sharing economy.
Exactly.
So what has happened here? And my background is advertising agencies, so I understand what's happened here. Is an ad agency, Ogilvy, and there's one of those here in Auckland. Maybe you can get some potholes tweeting Ogilvy, Auckland. An ad agency called Ogilvy in Panama City has created a device, it claims, that sits in the bottom of potholes and sends a tweet every time it's run over. The Twitter account is El Hueco Tuitero. I don't know. That probably means the tweeting pothole in whatever they speak in Panama. It sounds to me like something I'd order in a restaurant if I ordered in restaurants. It can't be Greek.
I'm sure it's Greek. Surely.
I don't speak. It's all Greek to me. And apart from just saying, "Hey, I'm a pothole. I'm here. I just got run over," it also does other stuff. It tweets about puddles. It tweets about fissures in the roads. It speaks about all sorts of things that
I've been automated. That's all I tweet about is puddles.
But apparently, it's making a difference.
Well, so how does this work? If you've got a pothole in the road and you've bothered to go out and put a device in, would you not just actually fill it in?
Oh, you're ruining the magic.
I mean, really?
You're ruining the magic. Well, apparently it is making a difference, and it's getting media coverage, which is the whole point. Look, it's getting media coverage right now, Meta, and the Panamanian or the Panama City authorities are actually doing something about it. But I kind of like the idea of things that tweet when they're unhappy or not right.
Internet of Things. That's where we're going.
I know. I would like. You know how some people in households they leave the toilet seat down. And you go to the toilet, and the toilet seat is down. And you got to lift it up. God. So I would like a toilet seat that tweeted when it was down, because and asked to be left, to be returned to the proper position.
That's right.
This is totally the too many dicks on the dance floor edition, isn't it?
You'll never balance with this.
Or in the office, the coffee beans have run out. I'd like that tweet. That'd be handy.
I'm thinking further afield. I'd quite like it every time I am using my cell phone and the network drops out. I'd like it to tweet and alert the network operator that, in fact, there's a problem in the network, because it's got my GPS right here, right here, right now. Of course, I can't tweet at that point because I've got no network, but I think it's a great idea.
You're so interesting sometimes, and this is not one of those times.
Listen, honestly, failing that, though, all right, another one I'd like to know where all the Mr. Whippy vans are at any given moment. That I can either approach one or hide my children from one, depending on how close to
This is not Twitter. This is an app. And I know Mr. Whippy Auckland is on Twitter, and that means everyone on Twitter listens to the show. What you need, and we were out at kids soccer yesterday, kids 16-year-old. We were in Papakura or Taupo or someplace down there. And a Mr. Whippy van, we could hear it in the distance, and the wind would sort of blow the music
and
towards
all the
us.
dads are going, Mr. Whippy van.
So what we need is an app.
And a tractor.
Just an app that when it's within 5 kilometers, your phone just goes. Do, 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 do. I could go on. Do, 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 do. We should do this all the way to the air break. Do, 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 do.
And
Anyway,
then
and if you eat too many Whippies, what happens? Too many Mr. Whippies, what happens to you? What happens to
have
you?
a McFlurry.
You get fat and you
die.
You die. Did you
Good
like-
segue.
Good
That's
segue.
Marvelous.
And but when will you die?
Well, according to this, I'm on my way out. I've just had a little calculate, and I'm toast.
Oh, that's no good at all.
No, it's
you
quite
don't have to,
shocking.
you don't have to share that if that upsets you, Paul.
I'm feeling a little bit at risk.
So there are all sorts of apps, and some of them are a bit scammy and spurious. And I saw someone tweeted their headstone on, well, they didn't tweet, they posted their headstone on Facebook before saying, rest in peace, Brian Holland, age 65 from drugs, I think it was.
Yeah.
This one is a little bit more scientific, and this is from ubble.co.uk. So ubble.co.uk. Disclaimer, it's only for people aged 40 to 70, but also it's only for people in the UK. So it's based on UK population data and behaviour data and health data. But it asks you about 10 questions, and all the usual suspects are there. Do you smoke? Have you smoked?
That's right. How fast you walk.
Does it ask about alcohol?
It doesn't ask about alcohol.
Doesn't ask
Because
about
if you're in
alcohol.
England, it just presumes you drink
Presumes
like a fish.
you're a pisshead.
Yeah.
But it asks you how fast you walk. That's interesting.
It does, isn't it? Isn't that interesting? And it's not the only one that does that. A company I work with is using that as a metric for determining whether you should be in sales or not.
Look at that. How fast do you walk? Also, random things like how many cars does your household have?
That's right.
But then
Cars
it
or
gets
white
to
vans.
the end, and it gives you what it calls an Ubble age, which I think is quite cool. And this is the age, and this is technical, so I'll go slowly. It's the age of the person you have the same risk of dying as.
That's
so
right.
it's saying, hey, Mr. 47-year-old Vaughan, you have the life expectancy of a 62-year-old. You go, holy moly.
I'm in trouble now.
But in my case, my Ubble age was 30, and I was really quite happy about that.
Well, mine is 51, and I'm really not terribly impressed
I
at all.
wonder what you see. You got a
Well,
lot.
I have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which may have influenced the results somewhat
the
slightly.
cancer.
When you say, "Do you have cancer?" Yes, it probably shoves you
when
down
you
the
say
far end
yes,
of the
when you
truck.
say yes, to
Never
the
say
cancer
yes
question.
to anything. No,
That is
that's a negative.
one thing I would say yes to, though, if I were a cat or a dog, is joining. This just blew my mind. Joining we need Raggy. The world's, well, I don't know if it's world's first, but it's quite big. A pets only social network in China.
Sniffyourbum.com?
It's something very. Did you guess that?
I just guessed
it's
that.
incredibly close. It's called, and this is not a word of a lie, and it might be better in Chinese, but in English, it's called Smell Me.
Oh, brilliant.
So there is a social. So I was in China last year. You can't get Facebook.
No.
You can't get Twitter. You can't get Instagram. You can get LinkedIn, I think, because
You
it's
can.
all
And
business.
Weibo.
Oh, of course, Weibo comes from
Weibo,
there.
of course.
But if you're a cat or a dog, you can also get Smell Me. The idea is it lets pet owners create profiles for their animals. It doesn't ask the animals to do it themselves. Although there was a thing here last year where cats were taking their own photos on Instagram, supposedly. I think that was
Supposedly.
that was also ad agency award
I think
time.
that's just cats getting a little bit of marketing help.
I think it is cats getting a little bit of marketing help. But this is the size of it. It's been going not very long at all. It's got 5 million users already.
Well, it is China, so you
It is
can't really
China.
start with any less than 5 million, can you?
It is China, and it just announced today that it's pulled $6 million US of what's called Series A funding, which is
Seed
like
fund.
your first setup funding.
What are we going to do to get $6 million of seed funding?
We've already covered that. We're going to do a Mr. Whippy app.
Okay, that's good. That's
when
good.
the
No,
Mr.
that's
Whippy
right. I
van
remember
is
now.
within 5 kilometers.
Yep, okay.
It plays music in your pocket that goes
That's
something
good.
like do 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 do. I'm Vaughan Davis. You listen to Radio Live Sunday Social. After the break, the apps that you just cannot be without. Back soon.
Karen Hay.
And he got a 12 months home D.
12 months home D while I'm suffering here, which has just devastated me. And I just feel that New Zealand has to know what you have to go through, and they still don't get, if you get pulled up for drunken driving, you pay over 400, you lose your licence. This guy has just about killed me, and he's got 12 months home D.
Every debate has two sides, so share yours. It's Karen Hay. Weeknights from 8 on Radio Live. It's Sunday Social with Vaughan Davis.
Hi, chubby human. Fitness overlord Carrot here to announce 7 minutes in hell, the diabolical interval workout that's so damn fun. We'll finally science your lacy carcass into a form more consistent with what celebrity magazines say you should look like. I'll personally offer advice, encouragement, and threats of bodily harm during each of 24 never-before-experienced exercises. Protect your property from
Paul Brislin, what in the name of God was that?
That is my new.
You made me play that.
I did. I'm so pleased you did too. That is the new app that I found to get fit, because as you know, I am a couch potato, and we've talked in the past about various apps to try and get us up and motivated. And since I've done something manly and torn my ACL and can no longer go to the gym, I decided I would find yet another one.
Did you say anterior? Anterior.
Whatever
so
it is,
little
it
Simpsons reference there. But anyway,
so yes, I thought, well, I'll have a look for something that helps. And Carrot is the most obnoxious self-help app I've ever come across.
Why on earth? I mean, I can understand. I mean, when I was in the military, we had obnoxious drill sergeants. But why would you want an obnoxious fitness app?
Well, two reasons. One, I do get very, very tired of all the super saccharine cat poster
You can
video.
do it.
You know, woohoo!
You're a
it's
winner.
Great when you're 3. My
Reach
daughter
out
learned
to other winners.
She learned to do her alphabet. I'm going to persevere now, Percy. She learned her alphabet with Winnie the Pooh putting pots back on a shelf on a computer game, and she learned in minutes. It was fantastic. I have grown beyond needing warm, gentle encouragement. I like people to shout at me. And Carrot, thankfully, sounds very much like GLaDOS, for those people who've ever played Portal and Portal 2, the games. GLaDOS is the computer game, the computer AI that runs it, and is outrageously unpleasantly obnoxious.
So what do you so setting
great.
aside the obnoxicity,
Yes.
which is now a word, it's joined the corpus thanks to the Radio Live obnoxicity.
We've embiggered it.
What do you actually do in this app? It's
Well,
rude to you,
it's
and
rude
then what
to
do you
you.
do? What's your part of the
it
deal?
tracks. So you've got to do all the work. So there's 7-minute workout, which is a fat busting workout. So it's designed to get you off the couch, very easy. Even I can do 7-minute workouts because they last for 7 minutes. Yeah. So even I've got time for that.
Feeble human.
They give you quite a good interface. It's nice and easy to use. And for $4,
I love the way you're holding your phone up to the microphone,
so that you can see it.
See
So
it.
you can tell me all about. Yeah, no, we should have it. If only there was a camera.
Oh,
in the
look at
room.
that! It's on.
Look.
If you're on Periscope, there it is.
There it is now.
Okay, so
it
the
is
name
glorious.
of it is Carrot Fit. It costs money. It costs
$4,
$4, which is a heck of a lot of money, and
It
it's worth the
is.
crack. So guaranteed to get you off the couch. So
Yep.
we'll get you back in 3 weeks and see if you've been off the couch.
Okay.
If you prefer, as I do, to remain on the couch, particularly in these long winter nights, very few things offer better company on the couch than a glass of wine.
The finest
The
red.
problem is
You're a pisshead.
which wine to buy.
And you can't
No,
remember.
that's not the problem. That's just the circumstance.
Oh, that's just the way it
The
goes.
problem is which wine to buy. And I was in a restaurant in Sydney. This is all about my trip to Sydney the other night, and I said to the sommelier. No,
Oh,
the sommelier.
oh,
You don't
you were
talk to the
in a
maitre
proper
d' about
restaurant.
wine.
Oh,
Paul.
you were in a
I said,
real
I said,
one.
oh, mate, would you
Pizza
mind?
Hut doesn't
Would you
have
mind
a
bringing?
sommelier.
Would you mind bringing the bottle out again so I could photograph it? And because I really like that wine. May I photograph it? And then I've got a note of it. And he said, oh, I've got something even better than that, sir. He said, I've got this app called Delectable. Delectable, as recommended by a fancy pants sommelier in Sydney. And Delectable is an app designed for exactly that circumstance. So you're in a restaurant, you snap the wine, the app back end reads the label, recognizes the image, and goes, "Oh, well, that's a 2012 In Vivo Otago Pinot Noir.
Nice product placement.
Here are the ratings. Here are some other wines you might like. Here's where you might buy it, and Bob's your uncle." The other thing it does is allows you to do this in a store. So there you are, in Countdown, you see the In Vivo wine, take the photo, and it tells you all about it. Which
Just
is
like the
kinda cool.
bookshops that hate you taking your smartphone
Bookshops
in.
do hate that.
They
So
hate you doing.
which is kind of cool. So the name of the app is Delectable. It's free. I like that. You can also use it to shop, as I said, but you can only do the shopping side of it in the USA. So it It falls.
the America Wide Web.
Falls down a little bit there. Yeah, it's available. It's like the World Series. It's worldwide to an extent. So I
East
kinda
Coast
like
to West
it.
Coast.
Now-
It's got a Twitter account as well. I'm always a big fan of that.
I
I shall
am.
abuse them right now for not being New Zealand.
Yes, and abuse and pressure is generally the way to convince a company to do something different.
Whining works.
One thing that makes me want to grab for that red wine like nothing else on earth is a good fall of snow.
Oh, good dump of snow keeps you indoors,
It-
snuggled up by the fire with
it-
your doona and your dog.
It absolutely does. And but the problem is here, we're based in Auckland. Apologies to listeners
get
who
a
are
lot
not.
of snow.
We're based in Auckland. We don't get a lot of snow. So if we're going to wait for the snow to fall before we have a glass of wine,
need a lot of
we're
wine.
going to be waiting for a very long time. So what I've decided to do is
move.
Just wait until I've decided to wait until it's snowing somewhere.
Oh,
and that will be enough. So if it's snowing somewhere, I'll
Somewhere.
reach for my Delectable app and choose a bottle of wine
Bob's
and
your
drink it.
Somalia.
But how do I know if it's snowing somewhere?
Well, where are you going to pick to have this? Because you could get horribly wrong. If
Well,
you pick, Saskatchewan.
Dunedin officially has all the things. I was on
Right.
Talkback the other night, and they had a Monty of an earthquake, and then some days after that they had a flood, and occasionally it snows. But how, Paul? How do I know? How can I find out if it's snowing in Dunedin?
Is there a webcam or someone you can ring down there?
Oh, I
perhaps, or-
suppose you could. I suppose
go
you
old
could, you could ring them up. Well, luckily,
Net service.
this being Sunday Social, it's all about the internet. It's all about the technology. Luckily, there is a website designed only to tell you whether or not it's snowing in Dunedin. The web address is. Write this down.
I'm poised.
Is it snowing in Dunedin.nz? Go there and it'll either say yes or no. That is my type of website. You can stick your online accounting in your snow cave. This is my kind of website. Does
Dan
one
built
thing, does it well. Is it snowing in Dunedin.nz? Hey, thank you so much for listening to Radio Live Sunday Social. I'm Vaughan Davis. With me in the first half from Uber, Oscar Peppert. In the second half, Paul Brislin from Paul Brislin, really. The whole thing's online at radiolive.co.nz under shows and Sunday Social, and of course the podcast on iTunes. Almost time for the Weekend Variety Wireless. I am out of here. Good night.
Complete news.